here from Boin Nui, a district in Phong Sali province in northern Laos, right by the border of the Pho Dun Din National Biodiversity Conservation Area. We are here today with yet another edition of ESL Open Cup Asia Division, this time the number 158th edition. I'm, of course, Yakuzaku of the Zaku, and with me today is El Pastelero que sabe sacudir, Light_VIP. How you doing, Light?
What's up, Yaku? We are here. We are back with a lovely edition of ESL Open Cup Asia. Unfortunately, we missed out on the 157th edition, but we're here with the 158th, and we don't just have the balance mod that is currently in play. We also have the new map pool.
Oh yeah, things are gonna get very, very switched up here. Rip Data C. But we are, of course, gonna begin with one of those new maps, Ancient Cistern, where we're here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, starting all the way in the bottom left-hand corner. We have our blue Zerg player coming down from the land of Korea, representing On-Site Gaming, OSG. He is Sola.
And spawning in the top right-hand corner of Ancient Cistern, we have his opponent, the South Korean Protoss player. Currently teamless, it is Classic.
New map pool is on the way, getting ready for Katowice, a very sort of fantasy, almost medieval-ish theme, it feels like a lot of these new maps have.
Yeah. For those wondering, I believe the new maps are on social media. People have been talking about them all week, and a lot of people assumed and hoped it would come with the new season. They were people full of copium. Oh my god, these maps are still not live in the game itself, but in preparation for, making sure that we find any kind of bugs or any kind of balance issues and allowing the pro players to prepare for Katowice, ESL are enforcing the new map pool in the new ESL Open Cups.
Yep, and I'm excited to see what our players are going to be coming up with here.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be honest, I haven't looked too much into the new map pool yet, so I'm kind of experiencing it for the first time here with yourself, Yaku. We're experiencing it together.
Speak for yourself. No, I'm kidding. I also haven't looked too in-depth at the new map. I've just kind of seen what some of the players have to say about it. I know Ragnarok says that he's pretty satisfied with both the new patch and the new map pool. At least for Zerg, and he worries that the other races are going to complain.
Yeah, I did see that translation of Ragnarok as well. It appears a lot of the new maps, or in general the new map pool, has a lot of very large maps with a lot of bases, contrary to how things usually are, and because of that, things may favor late game play and may favor Zerg play as well, because they're going to have a lot more bases available to them, but we'll see how things kind of progress. For the time being here on Ancient Cistern, nothing too crazy. We do see Classic going for a Stargate opener, which is kind of crazy because he's not going for a robo first.
Yeah, contrary to what he typically likes to do. This is kind of weird, though, this Overlord positioning.
You're like, oh my god, Perv Pillars at the natural again? It's been so long. The Overlord is finally going to get taken out here. Meanwhile, the main base is actually incredibly large. We can see, even with the spotter pylon, we're not covering the entire main, so that's definitely something that we're going to have to be careful of on this map. On top of that, if you remember, last map pool, or I guess the current map pool, depending on how you look at it, had a lot of natural bases with ramps. I'm curious to see how much of a trend that is in the new map pool, because here, at least here on Ancient Cistern, it's not the case.
That main base looks so noticeable.
It does.
I can see it so clearly.
Oh my god, it's insane. So we'll see if that kind of becomes a little bit trendy as well. For the time being, again, it was a Stargate opener. We can see the follow-up already. We have a Twilight Council, we have a Forge, and we have a Robo.
Yeah, so switching things up a little bit is Classic, but kind of finding his way back into what he's used to. A little bit of unfortunate control there with one of the oracles, but he keeps one of them alive at the very least, and he is able to pick off a couple of drones.
Yeah, 3 drones are going to be going down, which is nice, but losing an Oracle leaves much to be desired. We do see a lot of dead space behind the main in this corner, by the way, so we can kind of keep units here, we can keep drops here as well, so that's something that we have to be wary of. Unfortunately, Classic come... Oh, no, the Oracle!
Fortunately, Classic can't really escape without meeting 3 queens in each and every exit path.
Yeah, Classic ended up losing 2 oracles here in total for only 3 drones. That's not something you want to be seeing, and just like that, Solar is given so much control of the map. We can see Lings flooding across the map as well, and on top of that, the oracles, they're not here anymore, not just to deal economic damage, but also to defend the third.
Yeah, I'm looking at 3 adepts and 1 zealot right now as the extent of Classic's defense.
Yeah, especially with that shield batteries, I do feel like Solar missed an opportunity here to deal damage. I do think that he could have tried to surround all of this and then deal more probe damage, but Solar is going to play this safe. We saw him get 1 transferring worker, and then he backs off.
Yeah, in fairness, I guess Solar as well hasn't really been able to look at what Classic's been getting, at least in his main base. You know, he sees that Classic is already saturated on 3 bases, which is about the same economic position that he is in, and that's not something you want as a third player. So I can't say I blame him too much for playing it safe.
Yeah, I don't blame him either, especially because, you know, now is the opportunity for players to be trying different things. We do see Lings trying to dip in here for a bit of a scout. They do confirm the 4th base, but there isn't enough here to deny it, so Solar just gets the scouting information, and now he finally goes into the main.
Yeah, he sees a lot of gateways. He sees that Templar Archives on the way as well. If he was planning to go for Mutalisk earlier on, he's going to have to think of a bit of a different way to utilize them.
Yeah, I mean, Mutas are still going to be okay. We do see a confirmation of Disruptors, and the Mutas, even though they don't do well against Archons, and there are Archons, of course, there are no Blink Stalkers, so honestly, Solar, he can have a field day bouncing between these bases. We can see that a lot of these mineral lines are looking pretty exposed, except for the main, to be fair.
Yeah, which I guess kind of makes sense. It is where you don't want your army to be as a Protoss player.
And here we go, Solar is just rallying his Ling Roach over towards the 4th base here of Classic. We do have Mutas on the way, and unscouted, these Mutas could straight up end the game. Classic, he's being careful though. Here we go, and we now have cannons and shield batteries being thrown down in all of his mineral lines.
And not only that, but he's also thinking forward. That's a 2nd Stargate about to finish up, and more importantly, a fleet beacon slowly on the way.
Oh boy, he is looking to transition into Sky Toss. Again, this is a bit of a larger map, so it looks like he doesn't want to try and go for any kind of timing attack with his Charge Ults or Archons. He wants to try and defend instead. Meanwhile, here we go, the Mutas are dipping in towards that 3rd base. At the same time, in comes the Ling Roach.
And there's a cannon there, but there's definitely still an opportunity for these Mutas to take a little bit of damage and give a little bit of damage. Not with the Archon in position, however. That complicates things a lot. Warpism looked to be in a little bit of trouble, but it wasn't in the end.
Yeah, the Mutas are just trying to find damage, and so far, Classic, despite not having a very mobile army, he's done a great job here. You know, prematurely, he did throw down a bunch of stack defense. You know, he's got a bunch of Stalkers in his natural, Archons at his 4th. Like, for the most part, he only lost, 3 probes. Yeah,
it's not a very mobile army, but it was very, very well positioned here for Classic. I'm really impressed that he just kind of had the foresight to say, I'm going to split off one of my Archons to chill at the 3rd base for just in case, you know? And that was enough.
Exactly, you know, really reading Solar quite well. If Solar didn't go for Mutas and instead went for Lingbane Roach Ravager, I do think that Solar probably could have broken one of these bases in a like committed frontal assault, because Classic was spread thin, but for the most part, he handles this very, very well. The Muta cloud is getting quite large though. Looking at the units tab here, we have 28 Mutas.
That is a catastrophe of Mutas, is the technical term. A lot of probes are finally starting to fall. Because there are just more than enough Mutas to fight the cannons. They can't fight the main army in a head-on engagement, but he doesn't need to.
Yeah, exactly. We do see a lot of Zealots going down on the left-hand side. The Mutas have taken down the entire mineral line. 11 probes have fallen, and now from here, Solar, he can back off. He can back off with the Mutas and go back in with the Ling Roach.
Like so. A lot of disruptors here. Classic. Classic leaves the disruptors super exposed, and they immediately get surrounded.
Classic, his attention span, we can see here, is being pulled apart. He's having a really hard time keeping up with the multi-pronged aggression of Solar. We do see a very large Phoenix army here now, and he can finally deal with these mutas, but he's already lost so much.
He really has. Losing all those workers earlier on was rough, but not the end of the game. But losing those 2 disruptors as well, very costly investment. And then losing even more workers beyond that. Classic is just so behind.
Yeah, especially when it comes to his overall army diversity. We can see here he is doing quite well against these mutants, but now the Corruptors come out to try and tank and help Solar out a little bit here. We'll see if Solar commits to this Sky Zerg army. It wouldn't be a bad idea to try and transition to a more heavy ground force, especially with the lack of disruptors, but for the time being, we are committing into Corruptors.
Yeah, and Classic is going to try to meet that in kind with a couple of Flux Vein Void Rays. Hasn't quite been able to get into his late game army, though. That's something Solo's been doing a really good job of, is just forcing these sort of lower tier units out of Classic instead of Tempests or Carriers that can really end the game.
Yeah, exactly, and this is when Classic is the most vulnerable. If he can get into his mass Void Ray, then he's going to be okay, but he's not there quite yet. He does have 2 Disruptors with his army, and without Baneling Speed, without Ravagers as well, I don't think Solo can actually do much with this army composition. We'll see. He's trying to find a way in.
Yeah, I don't think that choke point is going to be a solution. I assume Solo already had an infestation pit, but I guess not. He's getting it now, which is about time.
Yeah, he's working on his infestation pit, and I do think that this means that Solar is going to be a little bit more passive here. He's going to try and dip in, but really he's going to lose the last of his mutas. The Void Rays are revealing themselves, and Classic wants to fight!
Ooh! That was a pretty juicy Purification Nova, but if there's something that Solar has, it's numbers. And speaking of numbers, he also has enough Banelings to wipe out a mineral line.
Yeah, those are Baneling run by here. 17 probes have gone down. 4 Classic is down to 66 workers remaining. His main army is looking quite solid for the most part. I say for the most part, as the muta count dies down, these Phoenixes kind of serve their usefulness, and they're kind of dead supply at a certain point, so I'm sure Classic wants to refine his army even more. Meanwhile, here we go. He's pushing on forward. He's got a lot of Archons.
And he wants to utilize them. Solar doesn't want to engage. But Classic's trying to take the fight to him. Another massive Baneling run by. Might actually be able to kill the Nexus.
Oh my god, the Banelings that roll on in, and the splits are pretty good here from Classic. He reacts quite well this time, only loses 8 of his workers. He can resume mining. Meanwhile, his main push hasn't really been slowed down. He's continuing to reinforce, warping in even more Archons.
Yeah, the Hive just isn't done yet for Solar. He can't get any Vipers. Very juicy Purification Nova on the vast majority of those Banelings, and Classic finds an opening.
Yeah, here we go. Another wave of Banelings is coming in, but another Nova goes off.
Yeah, finally the Banelings are starting to crash through, and they do connect with a lot of these Zealots, but the Archons are still standing, and that's the real backbone of this Protoss army. Classic is just starting to collapse on top of this army, but I do think he needs to be a little bit careful. These Archons don't have much of a buffer anymore.
They really do not, but at the same time, Solar doesn't have a lot left either. We do have to be careful not to overextend, but it looks like this base is going to be going down. Solar is coming in here with another round of Banelings.
Unfortunately, not quite, able to connect. A quick warping of Zealots will provide a little bit of a buffer here for Classic. These Roaches shouldn't do that much damage.
Yeah, and here we go. The Ling Roach is just barely enough to overwhelm here. Classic did get a base. He did initially trade very well, but we can see that he just stuck around a little bit too long, and he didn't have a lot of longevity either. You can see that he hasn't been able to rebuild his worker count. You can see that he was struggling a little bit there, and it's kind of telling in the supplies.
Oh, it absolutely is. I don't want to count Classic out just yet. He still has a couple of disruptors. He can, if he's able to nail those Purification Novas, then I think Solar is going to be in a lot of trouble. But Solar's really looking to go for a counterattack, and I think he'll be able to take at least a base.
Yeah, like the problem is that that last push from Classic, he was forced pretty all in. He was pretty committed because he kept losing workers to those bailing run-bys, right? Like his hand was being forced and he got a hatchery, but he needed more than that. I'm pretty sure Classic, he was hoping to end the game with that push, and Solar was able to just buy that much more time. And meanwhile, the longer this game goes on, Solar will be the first to remax.
He really will. I mean, he's already on his way right now. In fairness, though, you know, Classic, he is starting to get his carrier count up. So you could argue that he's going to have the better army, but Solar has Viper production now. In fact, he's sucking on some youth juice already.
Yeah, he's just sucking on some of the buildings. Prism is going to go down, so Classic, he doesn't really have an option to harass across the map. But on what you were saying, the one thing that Solar was lacking earlier was his Hive Tech. Now he has it. Now Greater Spire is on the way for Broodlords. We have the Vipers for those Abducts, for those Parasitic Bombs against the Void Rays. Solar's getting a great army against Skytoss, and Classic is still struggling to get into Skytoss.
Yeah, 3 carriers, unfortunately, aren't going to cut it. But I'm not sure if 1 Viper is going to cut it either.
True, we do only have a single Viper here, and that may be a little bit of a mistake and oversight here from Solar, especially if the Viper does get sniped. Oh.
Yeah, I think he was trying to save supply for these Broodlords.
Yeah, there we go. He's going into the Broodlords. I now worry a little bit here because he doesn't have that much anti-air remaining. Looking at the units tab, we are down to 5 Corruptors. To be fair, Classic, his Skytoss is still lacking. He still has a lot of supply in the ground, so Broodlords aren't a bad option. But if Solar gives his opponent more time, there are going to be more carriers. Oh my god! Oof.
I almost said CC. Cybercore will go down and deny +3 air weapons. More importantly, will deny any warp-ins of Stalkers or Zealots. Oh, not Zealots, sorry. Any warp-ins of Stalkers that can act as a little bit of a buffer here against the Banelings.
Yeah, definitely. So that's going to delay the upgrades here of Classic. So a great move from Solar here to just keep himself ahead. Meanwhile, he himself is working on his own upgrades. He's working on some run-bys as well. And I do think that he just wants to refine his army. I think he's realized that maybe he has too many roaches and they do take up a lot of supply. Meanwhile, Bailing run-by comes in, but Classic reacts.
Yeah, just about in time. I have to wonder, like, is it worth it to just sack those Banelings to try to take out the Nexus?
Maybe if we had better upgrades. I don't know how many +2 Baileys you need. Look, these aren't CCs, okay? You know, show me a planetary, sure. Oh my god. As we have a little bit of run by here. Ooh, nice Zealot warp in. Finally, Classic is going to be dealing a little bit of economic damage of his own, and he's forcing Solar to respond.
Yeah, even a cheeky little warp in into the main base. There are only Corruptors to try to deal with that.
Yeah, so this isn't too bad. At the same time, Classic, he finds a little bit of breathing room to push out and clear up a bunch of creep here. So Classic isn't taking this lying down. He's had enough of having to deal with all these bailing run-bys. He's like, yo, okay, how do you like it, Papi? How do you like it, Solar? And his army, it's getting scarier and scarier by the minute.
It really is. Finally, Storm is starting to be researched. I think that was the one thing that Classic was really lacking when it came to his unit composition.
Yeah, meanwhile, another Bailing Run-by is coming in, another split, but even though we had a split, 14 probes still go down. At the same time, Solar, he's going to try and catch Classic unawares. He picks off 1 carrier. He gets a 2nd.
Not quite able to get a 3rd. Blamed the lack of Vipers for that.
Oh, exactly. And as Solar is losing supply, as he's losing Banelings and Lings and Roaches, he's replacing them with more Corruptors. He recognizes how committed the carrier account is, so he's doing a great job at transitioning and transitioning like nicely, you know, not leaving himself open to a counterattack.
Yeah, it's a pretty difficult, it's a pretty tricky thing to balance, having enough of a ground army to deter the Archons while also having enough of an air army to try to take out the Skytoss. Meanwhile, another round of harass coming out from Classic. He's able to kill 2 bases with Zealots and with Void Rays.
And this is the downside of getting rid of your Lingbane Roach Ravager, because now your anti-ground army is that much slower. Broodlords took a long time to get here. A hatchery just went down. The Void Rays were able to snipe another hatchery as well. Like, Solar himself, like, he is sustaining damage. He's sustaining losses.
Yeah, quite a bit of damage, quite a number of losses. He is going for another big counterattack right now. Solar has a pretty massive bank, so it's fine if he loses those roaches and those ravagers. I can't say the same about the Brute Lords and the Corruptors, though.
Yeah, here we go. One carrier is going to be going down, but the Archons are here to protect them. Every single Brood Lord gets cleaned up here. Solar with a little bit of a misstep, exposing his own Brood Lords.
Yeah, just like that. That was a very expensive loss. And just like that, Solar has spent his gas bank.
Yeah. Solar, he's back down to 800 gas. He's trying to rebuild his Brood Lords as we speak. But again, like, he's just been having a really hard time. And what's unfortunate, if you can recognize, he hasn't replaced any of his spellcasters. So yeah, where are those Vipers from earlier? Where are the even Infestors if we wanted to go that route?
I thought something was missing. I felt like we were forgetting something. I thought it was just breakfast. But no, it was actually Solar forgetting the Viper.
Oh, and this Zealot run by is huge. It's forcing the entire Ling army to respond here, and it looks like it should get here in time to save the base. Oh, it's going to be close. Up.
It will go down in the end. Classic is more than willing to sacrifice those Zealots if it means he gets that much more economic damage. Again, that was a very fresh base of Solar. Fully saturated, 16 out of 16 base. He needed to keep it alive, and now that it isn't, things are looking rougher and rougher.
Oh, and this is an unfortunate rotation from Solar. He tries to find an opening where the army isn't, but Classic, he was already in the area. The Ling Bane doesn't get past Classic, and now Classic, he can just launch from here. Like, he has a great staging ground, and at the moment, Solar just doesn't have that much to deal with the Sky Toss.
He tries to find an opening where the army isn't. Turns out the army was there.
But here we go. We have 16 Corruptors coming on in. They cannot go in by themselves because we have so many Archons on the ground. It looks like he's going to try and pivot away. We do see Vipers coming out. We have one Viper and soon to be 4 Infestors.
Okay, nailing a fungal. That's definitely a huge first step here, especially if you can land them on the High Templar.
Yeah, it's great that Solar has recognized what he is lacking, but because of that, like, earlier we saw him have a big advantage and have a lot of map control. That's all gone now. Now he's up against the wall. He barely has any creep on the map.
Yeah, look at the mini-map. Look at the banks as well. Solar's really struggling right now, and Classic is trying to find a way to put him out of his misery.
Classic, he's free to expand. He's taking the top left-hand base. Right-hand side is a little bit vulnerable. There's no workers there whatsoever. Oh, the feedbacks go up.
And they are massive. There's only one Infestor that has any energy on it left. There are no Vipers with any energy left either.
Yeah. And that means that these Tempests can go to town. They can just pick off whatever they want right now. We don't even have Neural available, so we can't even punish these individual units. Neural is on the way, still a couple seconds up. But Templar's coming in for more feedbacks. Ooh.
But he doesn't quite get him.
Yeah, exactly. Here we go. The Infestors are coming on in. Neural finishes up in 10 seconds. But I don't think Classic is going to give him an opportunity. Meanwhile, Solar is getting ready for a mass round.
But unfortunately, there are way too many Archons for that. Well, fortunately for Solar, though, he recognizes that this means that the bases are vulnerable. He sends his ground army to counterattack, but I worry that may just be poking the bear.
Yeah, there's nothing really at home, to be honest. To be fair, those bases don't matter as much. Meanwhile, once again, the feedbacks go off, getting both Vipers. Only a single Viper is left with energy, and it's way too soon.
Now there are 0, and there aren't any Infestors with any energy left either, or at least not with enough energy to really land a fungal or get a neural parasite.
They actually can't do anything. They don't have enough energy for anything. Wow. They need a little bit more time. The Spore Forest has been cleaned up, and even though two Nexuses just went down, there were barely any mineral patches. Like Classic, he didn't care.
Yeah, they were fully mined out bases. I mean, the biggest concern for Classic, I guess, would be, one, this base, and also if the Zerg army was potentially able to break through and get to the production, but they weren't, and they aren't.
Yeah. Yeah, we have shield batteries, you have cannons where they need to be. Classic does lose 8 probes, but he just killed a mining base. He just killed a hatchery. Solar, this is his only mining base left here in the bottom right-hand corner. He's got half a base here, but oh, there are no gas geysers left.
Yeah, and that's really the resource that Solar's aching for right now. If only he had a teammate that could feed him.
If only he had his own spirits, just like Raynor had. Here we go. Solar still has a good army. He can still take a good fight. It's just that Classic can rebuild. That's the biggest problem after all said and done. Meanwhile, we have another run by here towards the top left. It looks like we have a bit of a warp in Classic. Is he going to recall or is he going to keep pushing?
He is going to take the long way around.
I mean, his...
Oh no, never mind.
The Zealots are fine.
They are. Even fighting outside of shield battery range.
Yeah, I'm a little bit shocked. I didn't think the Zealots would be enough, but no, yeah, we just warped in 4 Zealots and they cleaned everything up.
Oh, I can't say the same about these Infestors though. Decent yoink, getting one to Tempest, but it also leaves a lot of these Infestors and these Vipers vulnerable to feedbacks like so. Very good fungal, but unfortunately for Solar, there's just no way for him to take advantage of that.
Yeah, one fungal is not going to be enough. Every Viper just went down, and Solar, he just sends everything in to their deaths. Oh my god.
G is called, and Classic will take that game. A bit of a longer game, 26 minutes, but it really didn't feel that way with... it really didn't feel that long, with all the back and forth that we had.
Yeah, GG, well played. Slow and steady wins the race. That was very methodical, very intentional play there by Classic. His transitions were very good. His ability to deal with the initial Muta harass was quite good as well. The Mutas didn't deal anywhere near as much damage as I thought they were going to do. And we saw Solar kind of struggle to get to the ideal late game army. You know, he was neglecting his spellcasters a lot until the very end of that game. And by the time he got them out, we already had High Templar, you know, like Classic already had a response.
He really did. And he responded to... But it's like by the time Sola got all those spellcasters, Classic had a unit that just denies spellcasters.
Pretty much. And
I don't mean ghosts.
Yeah, it took a long time to get Vipers for Solar. And Vipers are so important. They're so critical in late game ZvP. You need them desperately, whether it's parasitic bombs on units like Void Rays, or if they're mass carrier, you need those abducts. Yeah. You need to be able to try and punish and pick them off one at a time. But Solar really wanted to avoid the Viper. I think he thought that he could win the game without it. I think he thought that he could just pull his opponent apart. But in the end, it was him. It was Solar being pulled apart.
Yeah, he pulled himself apart. Joint by joint. But we are going to be continuing our series now on Gresven, which sounds like a Castlevania character. And in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, spawning all the way in that bottom right-hand corner, we have our blue Zerg player coming down from the land of Korea, representing Odside Gaming, OSG. He is Solar.
And spawning in the top left-hand corner of Gresvan, we have his opponent, the South Korean Protoss player, currently up 1-0 in this best-of-3 series. It is Classic.
And now, do we know who made this map?
I'm sure we could look it up, definitely. Why do you ask?
Because I'm trying to figure out where the name comes from.
You know what? I can check in a couple of seconds. It was created by someone called Ligan.
Ah, so chances are it's not a Nightwish song.
No. Not at all. A bit of a lesser known face in the map maker community. But I love what's brought to the table here, because for the first time in a long time, we have a bit of a shorter map, like as in not too wide, not tall.
It's like squished. Yeah. It's got girth.
Yeah, it's got girth, not length. I think the last map that we had of that kind was, I think, Submarine, maybe? That was a couple of years ago.
Submarine, I think Submarine was the big one. I mean, yeah, probably Submarine, because I just remembered we had that Submarine was in the map pool before we had the 1.5 year long pool.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just been so long. So now we get the cinematic feel of black bars in the minimap. It's been a while.
Yeah. It's going to be... This map is going to be played at 24 FPS, but with motion blur, you know?
No, what is it? What is it? No, I said James. No, Peter Jackson did what, like 60 FPS or something for the
60
Hobbit?
FPS, yeah.
There you go. Cinematic pop. He's gonna make everyone throw up.
Throw in some lens flare, and then we got the real, cinema experience.
Yeah, we're going full Hollywood, mate. Let's go.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting. Once again, oh my god, the entrance to the natural's crazy. It's like,
I love it.
It's huge. This is reminding me. This is like Daedalus Point. Do you remember the map that needed like 3 nexuses to wall off?
Yeah, way back in Heart of the Swarm. I love it. Protoss players got Cosmic Sapphire for like 4 months or something like that. And now they have to suffer. I'm here for it.
They're like, you got Death Aura, you know, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. Now, war, papi, war. Jesus, it's gaping. Look at this. Oh my god,
I love it. 1 creep tumor isn't enough to fill it with creep.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh my god.
Unless you put it dead in the center.
It's actually a little bit insane. As we do see a Stargate opener here, Classic immediately, he's just going straight for a 3rd Nexus, so a very economic opener from Classic. Very standard in current meta. We'll see where he goes from here, as we ourselves are trying to acclimate to this map.
I could wall with a planetary. The possibilities are endless.
Oh my god. It's as big as the screen. That Jesus.
How's that for cinematic?
Yeah, there you go. Meanwhile, here we go. We do have the double Oracle opener. Only 2 Oracles. We don't have a 3rd behind this. Classic is looking to immediately transition into the Forge and Twilight Council.
Yeah, a bit more of the hero style, but a variation that involves adepts to try to support these Oracles. I'm a little surprised that Classic didn't go for a more standard multi-prong, but seems to be working out for him.
Yeah, he goes in with 3 adepts here. He gets a couple of drones at the same time. No Spore at the 3rd base, so Solo getting punished a little bit for his greed, as 5 drones are going to be going down. And this just, you know, we got to bring it back to game number 1. If you remember, the early game was disastrous for Classic. He lost both Oracles for 3 drones. Already a much better start for Classic.
Not gonna lie, I thought you were gonna say we gotta bring it back to this wall in natural. But, yeah, we don't see that come into play just yet. It was a much better start for Classic this time, but it does force Sola to go a little bit more aggressive. There are only Zealots here to defend, as of course the Oracles used up the energy across the map. Surprisingly though, Classic is able to not take any probe damage.
Yeah, he lost his shield battery, but he did a great job at keeping his workers alive. He was able to respond well and come back home with his Oracles, and yeah, his 3rd base is relatively untouched.
Also important to keep in mind, he didn't actually lose his shield battery. He canceled it.
Oh.
Right at the end, so yeah, it was a loss.
Oh my god, that's crazy. I didn't even notice, but yeah, you're right. So very nicely done there by Classic. We do see him going for a bit of a scout. Oh my god, we've seen this become quite popular recently. It has been scouted, but Solar is going for an infestation pit.
Oh, bring in some of those 2v2 tactics into 1v1, I hope.
Oh my god, I mean, we ourselves, did we cost DRG this week, or was that me and Asher?
DRG versus Australia, was it?
Yeah, we cost it, and DRG, he was utilizing Swarm Host quite effectively, so there we go. Solar, he is doing the same. We have Swarm Host on the way. This has risen in popularity in ZvP as a great way to punish Protoss players that aren't going into Blink Stalker play, because their army is a lot less mobile. It's a lot less risky to go for these Swarm Hosts. Yeah,
Archons on paper are counter to Swarm Hosts. You know, they can shoot the Locusts and get splash damage in the air, but not if they're not. But that doesn't happen if the Archons aren't in position to actually, you know, attack the Locusts.
Yeah, exactly. So Solar adjusting to the meta a little bit here as the Charge Lord openers are becoming more popular from the side of Protoss. Meanwhile, we do see Classic pushing out a little bit, just posing a bit of a threat, bearing in mind that he did scout the Infestation Pit, but did he click on it? If he didn't, he may have thought it was an Evo Chamber.
Yeah, I mean, he is still getting Blink and Thermal Lance regardless, so it does seem, whether or not it's intentional, it does seem like he's getting a bit of an anti-Locust army, but we'll see if that really is going to be enough.
Oh, and these Locust Waves, they have got options, mate. Here we go. They're going straight through the center of the map. They're getting on top of every single one of these Zelts, even the Archons. Like, the army for Classic just isn't here.
Yeah, and he has to retreat. He doesn't want to underestimate the power of the Locust. The Colossus comes out, but the Locusts have expired. Now it's the Roaches. The Classic really needs to be worried about. Oh, that Archon goes down.
Archon does go down with the support of these Stalkers and Colossi. It looks like Solar is going to finally be forced away. But look at this fourth. Because of the low ground, like, Solar can lay siege from above.
I love it. I can put tanks there.
I was going to say the same thing. You put tanks there. Oh, that's awful.
Yep.
No, he doesn't go for the fourth. He doesn't need to. Not yet. He goes straight for the third, and it's completely exposed.
Yeah, he should be able to kill this Nexus. He forces Solar into a path of aggression, but I don't think Classic really has the army that can commit to a push right now.
Yeah, Classic, he's just lost a little bit too much here. He still has that fourth base, but we know how exposed it is. At any moment, Solar can just send a Locust Wave this way, and I don't think Classic can really stop him. Just the macro of Solar is too much. He's got his 3 bases, he's got his 4 bases. 66 drones is all this man needs, and he's been making nothing but army, and he hasn't lost. I don't think he's lost a single Swarm Host.
He has not, as a matter of fact. He hasn't even lost that many Roaches, all things considered.
Here we go. Another Locust Wave is coming in. We have a couple split off here towards the third base. In come the Roaches as well. And Classic is just being overwhelmed.
From all angles. One Void Ray in the sky. It's having a pretty tough time controlling the crowd in the ground.
He is. We finally have Blink Stalkers, and the Blink Stalkers are going to be able to force these Roaches back. You know, they're a much better unit to deal with, to handle with, as opposed to like the Charge Archon that we started with. Again, Classic, he was kind of dealt a bad hand. Meanwhile, as he dances with the Roaches, Solar, he just has to chill and wait and just keep sending out the waves.
Like so. And it's gonna land! Da-da! That was so cinematic watching those Locusts.
Oh, and they almost take down the Nexus. It looks like the next wave should be enough to take this down. So now this base is on a bit of a timer here, and I feel like Classic also is on a bit of a timer. He's making 2 Colossi at a time, and that's great and all. They do clean up Locust Waves quite quickly, but Solar's maxed out.
Yeah. Plus, there's still all these Roaches you have to take into account. I don't think this one Void Ray is going to be able to take all of them out.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Here we go. In comes another Locust Wave. It looks like part of them are being sent over towards that 4th base. Meanwhile, the Colossi, they're trying to rotate over.
Yeah, they're not all targeting the same thing. Solar recognizes the importance of Vipers this time. He yoinks one of the Colossus and is able to get 2 of the Colossus, actually. 1 of the Colossus, 2 of the Colossus. There we go.
Oh my god, even lands a couple of battles towards the end as well. Classic, he's fighting back. He's fighting his heart out right now. He wants to try and take the 2-0, but I think we can all see the writing on the wall here. Another Colossi is going to fall. Solar's rallying everything that he has across the map. GG gets called, and Solar ties up the series 1-1.
Oh. Very nicely done there by Solar, recognizing kind of the weaknesses of the map, or, you know, sort of just recognizing a couple of quirks that he could exploit on the map, and yeah, how to really force Classic into an unfortunate position. Little bit of a rough map for Protoss, just from this one game that we've seen, but I do think that whatchamacallit. Finish my thought for me, Light.
Yeah,
Because I gave up thinking.
Well, I do think that over time, right now, I think all players are still learning these maps, and over time, we're going to learn the strengths, learn the weaknesses, learn what's common on this map as well, and it's possible that things like swarm host play may be a lot more frequent on Gresvan moving forward in ZvP, and I'm sure the meta will adapt as well if that is where it settles. Oh boy, but I know what I want to veto.
I was gonna say, I here's where you and I are different. Like, you're like, as the maps kind of settle, as our players get more acclimated, they'll start to adapt. They'll start to switch out their plays. I think as our players get more acclimated, they'll learn what they want to veto.
Yeah. Just don't deal with it, Bobby. Just don't deal with it. But yeah, Gresvan looks crazy when it comes to trying to expand and take that base. But here we go, mate. The ace match, game 3.
I am going to abuse tanks on that map as we get into our ace match here in this best of 3 series. And we are going to continue it on Royal Blood, just like Game of Thrones. We're in the bottom left-hand corner map, spawning all the way in the bottom left-hand corner on top of this mat? Question mark? It's like a Persian rug.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's why it's royal. We have a blue Zerg player coming out from the land of Korea, representing On-Site Gaming OSG. He is Sola.
And spawning in the top right-hand corner of Royal Blood, we have his opponent, the South Korean Protoss player. He is red, representing himself. It is Classic.
They both get one.
Yeah.
And there are more rugs than that.
Oh, this is fancy.
It's a carpet. Oh,
look at that.
it's like Aladdin.
We may have lost Under the Sea, but we gain a whole new world.
Yeah. So you're there. Close your eyes.
A new fantastic point of view.
No one can tell us no.
I'll make it so. That's
Or where to go. Yes, now I'm Prince Ali, Ali Ababa.
That's not how it goes.
What's the other one?
There's more.
Gotta think fast. Gotta watch. No, yeah. Oh, what's up?
No. It's be a man.
Da-da,
Regardless, we are now getting into Royal Blood, and apart from the aesthetic, oh my god, look, there's even like a
That's like a
vase, a
a jug. Yeah,
a jug.
a vase.
No, yeah, it is a jug, to be fair. Vases don't have handles.
Oh, do they not?
Yeah, yo.
They're like cups.
They're
and
yeah,
bowls.
there's cups full of sand and stuff. Shout out to the map maker for just making this very aesthetic and just adding a couple of things here and there. If you remember, a bunch of assets were added a couple of years ago, and it's great to see something different.
Gold.
Gold. Oh, it's gold.
It's from
puppy.
Heroes of the Storm.
It is. It's the doubloons. They needed like
This is the Aladdin map.
They needed some Ewoks dancing in the gold. That's what they needed.
They should.
Because then that would be, what's the monkey's name? It'd be like the monkey.
Apu. No.
Apu.
Wait. No, Abu.
Abu, yeah.
It was something.
Apu runs the quickie work. He's not who I'm talking about. Oh my god. But regardless, outside of that, we do see some standard openers, and we didn't miss anything when it comes to what our players are doing. We see Hatch Gas Pool, Unnatural, Natural from Solar, and Classic just going for a Stargate opener.
I like to think our players are just as entranced by the fanciness of the map as we are.
Yeah, god, there's like money spilling out over the edge and stuff. Oh.
Yo,
we got like a
it's
fountain.
like yeah, with seats. It's like Final Fantasy.
There you go. Oh,
You got the gold bases, and surprisingly, the gold bases a little bit empty.
Yeah, I feel like we could do with a little bit more gold around the gold bases, but regardless, we do see as we're entranced by the map, we get back to the game, we do see Classic being quite aggressive here. He wants to he's trying to hunt down this Overlord, by the way, and his oracles are kind of like burying the Stalker the entire way through. He really wants the Overlord.
He really does, yeah. And this is exactly what Sola wanted, trying to draw that Stalker out of position. Even drains a little bit of energy here from the Oracle, even though he's not quite able to get the Stalker in the end. Overall, not that bad of a loss here for Solar. He keeps his drones alive back home.
He does keep his drones alive. Meanwhile, we can see a very different variation here from Solar, as we are, of course, in the Ace match. Looks like he doesn't want the game to go on any longer, and I don't blame him after game number 1. He's going for a very fast Lair, and he's going for Numasai's Carapace.
Oh!
Are we taxing the queens? Are we getting a Roach Queen push?
I mean, that's what all signs point to. I mean, it could possibly be a Roach drop, but like you said, I don't think Sola wants a longer game. If possible, I do think he just wants to end it.
Yeah, I mean, we can see here the rushes by ground isn't too long, to be honest. So Solar, the creep highway is starting.
Yeah, it isn't that long, now that I think about it. I mean, you do have that destructible rocks in the middle of the map, but you know, if you go just a little bit to the right or the left of that, it's not that long either. It doesn't snake around that much.
Yep, and here we go. We can see Solar has stopped droning at 48 workers. We have the Dropper Lords on the way. We have the creep highway being set up here by the rest of the Overlords. Roaches and Ravagers. Solar is going for one Giga all-in. And Classic, it looks like, oh, he hasn't noticed. He is teching right now. He just finished his Templar Archives. He's going into a Robotics Bay. There are no shield batteries.
None whatsoever. One of them is in production, but it doesn't complete until after the Archon gets taken out. So Classic is trying to just build as many defenses as he can right now, but I'm not convinced it's going to be enough.
Yeah. These Oracles, they need to be across up. They need to be scouting and checking the drone counts, and just like that, the Archons go down. I don't think the Queens are even necessary, to be honest, as the Road Ravager is pushing on through, and there's just nothing here.
Yeah. Reminder, this is a patch where shield batteries got nerfed. GG is called, and Sola will take that series 2-1 in the end. My phone hanged. Very nicely done here from Solar.
GG, very well played there by Solar. Again, Classic, unfortunately, because of how he was utilizing his oracles, and because he never made any adepts as well, which adepts are another tool that Protoss do typically use to try and get scouting information, he was in the dark for quite a lot of time there. We all saw that he wasn't ready at all. He had no idea that a massive push was coming until it was already in his face, until it was already too late.
Yeah. Solar really 2 games in a row understanding how to utilize the maps, I would say.
Oh, definitely. So yeah, as you were saying, Solar making great use of that. We can see that maybe in a later game, or if we end up in a position where Classic is able to survive whatever aggression Solar throws at him, Classic can thrive, you know, in that late game scenario. We saw that in game number 1. But after game 1, Solar's like, nah, I'm not going to let that happen again.
Yeah. Can't take any chances. And yeah, I guess like you said, a lot of these maps does seem like they traditionally anyway favor, in theory anyway, they favor longer games, and the player who gets ready and is set up for a longer game is the player that thrives, like we saw in game number 1 from Classic. Which is why it's so important to just try to deny that as early as possible if you don't want to get into it. But that was our first series of the evening. We still have plenty more, and we are going to be jumping into yet another ZvP.